best part of the day is the test drive. Today we have in the shop a 2018 Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. This car is in here to get an aggressive track setup because this car is going to go play in the curves. To do that, it's not too complicated. The rear end will achieve the alignment specs that we're looking for with nothing major done. It's just making the adjustments of toe and camber. The front, however, needs alignment shims installed in between the control arm and the subframe to give us the negative camber we're looking for. As we install the shims to give us negative camber, it will naturally give us more positive caster, which is what we want. We want to increase our caster for stability, and we want to decrease or go negative with our camber to give us power in the turns and grip in the turns. In this case, we're actually using aluminum alignment shims from a GM G8, and these will allow us to push our lower control arm out from the subframe and give us the negative camber we're looking for. We're going to start with one shim each. There's 2 bolts, so it'll have one shim each to push the lower control arm out. We'll see where that gets us, and then if we need more, we'll add more shims and go from there. So these are roughly a 1/4 inch shim, and we're going to see how much camber it yields us. We were at roughly negative 0.4 degrees camber when we started this. We're going to put these in here, tighten it back down, and we'll put our heads back on, recompensate the car, and see where we're at. So I'm done with this side. I'm going to put the wheels back on, rehang the heads, recompensate the car, and then I'm going to check to see where one shim put us as far as negative camber. If I need more, there's plenty of bolt thread to put a second, maybe even a third shim on, but I want to see what one yields me, and then if I need to add another one, I will add another shim to get us to the camber that we're shooting for. The passenger side is done. We're going to go ahead and get the driver's side done. We'll roll it back, redo our compensation, and then we'll move forward from there. So I made it about halfway on this Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio. One shim on each side yielded us about a full negative degree of camber and about a half degree of positive caster. Now I'm going to take it all back apart again, add a second shim, and then I'm going to recompensate the alignment machine, reset the toe, recompensate it again to make sure everything's happy, make sure I'm getting proper readings, and then hopefully that'll be the end of the shimming up front that I need to do on this car. So now, because we're adding 2 shims to each one of these lower control arm bolts, this is roughly about 13 millimeters. We're going to take the M10 by 40 bolt and we're going to replace it by a M10 by 50 bolt, just so that we make sure we have enough thread contact inside the subframe to hold it in place. So as we finish up the passenger side, you can see in here I've added 2 shims on each side of the lower control arm to bring my camber out roughly 2 degrees. Now that this side's done, we'll get the driver's side done, and once we're done with that, we'll go through compensations again, get everything ready to go back together. So the passenger side is all wrapped up on this. We're going to get the driver's side done. 2 shims. Each shim gives us about 1 degree negative camber. I'm not going to lie, the first shim was actually very easy to put in. Getting it put together with the second shim and the longer bolts, a little bit more of a chore. As this lower control arm is pushed out, it sweeps your caster forward and it puts the lower control arm bushing at a bind that makes it a lot more difficult to get the bolts lined up properly. I'm using hand tools to put this back together because I don't want to cross thread the lower subframe where these bolts go into. I do not want to cross thread those bolts going into this because that's a big nightmare that I don't want to have to tackle. So I'm using hand tools doing this to make sure I can feel the bolts going into the threads correctly to make sure I don't cross thread anything. I'll get this side done, we'll get it racked back up, and then we'll be able to show you the final results.
For those of you who are not familiar with the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, this is essentially a Ferrari V8 like you would find in the California, with basically 2 cylinders lopped off it and a set of turbos on it. So it is a 505 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, paddle shifted automatic. It's kind of like a 4-door Ferrari sports sedan for somebody who doesn't want to buy an AMG Mercedes or an M3. This is kind of the rowdy version of that. They're a little bit more track focused. This particular car actually goes to the track on racing slicks and does some corner carving. So this guy's in here to get a little bit more aggression added to the suspension, which we have done over the course of the entire day. Not something we're typically probably going to see a lot of business of. There's not a lot of people who want to fling their...
Probably not going to do too many of these.
No.
But hey, now I know how to.
Right. In case there's one other crazy person that wants to do this,
It can be done.
Lucore Automotive is your location to find that.
Negative camber was 0.3 negative, and it's now negative 1.6. So I achieved over a full degree of negative camber. I increased caster by a full degree. Be great for road stability. Hitting the corners with that extra camber is going to be phenomenal. Yeah, I'm real happy with how it turned out. I took it as far as I'm willing to go without making some other major modifications to tie rod ends and other things. So with the stock components, this is as far as I'm willing to take it.
Sure. Well, and this car is much more track focused than most of the other sports sedans in the market. So this is, I mean, this thing sits on 60 tread wear tires. So usually an autocross tire is like a 200 tread wear. This sits on factory 60s. So it's not like the extra degree of camber and a little bit of extra caster is going to affect tread wear that bad.
Yeah, they're going to be gone anyway. I mean, the alignment now is going to aggressively wear tires.
Sure.
But it's already got a tire on it that's maybe going to last, what, 6,000 or 7,000 miles?
Right.
So
there you go. Now you have your racetrack prepped Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio.
That's a mouthful.
Right. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. We have not enjoyed this. But remember to click like, drop us a comment, click subscribe. You probably won't see too many more Alphas on our alignment rack, but you never know what you will see here at Lucore Automotive.
It's always every day is a new adventure.
Every day is a new adventure. So we'll see you next time.
That's a fun car.